Three men set out on the expedition of a lifetime to capture one of the rarest big game trophies, high in the remote mountains of Central Asia. But instead of returning home in triumph, a raging blizzard traps them at 10,000 feet.
That was one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life.
And just when they think their nightmare is over, their rescue helicopter goes out of control and crashes into the mountains. Stranded, they face frostbite, starvation, and death in the icy wilderness.
If I don't walk out of here, these 100 people are going to be gone.
You don't live through these kind of things.
Kyrgyzstan is a remote mountainous country in Central Asia, formerly part of the Soviet Union. It's here that three hunters have come on a trip of a lifetime in search of the rare Marco Polo sheep.
The Marco Polo sheep is probably the most majestic ram that you would see anywhere in the world.
Spook Span is here with his father, Denny.
All right, let's go.
The trip is the pinnacle of their lifetime's passion for hunting.
We were very much country people. Grew up hunting, fishing, running up and down the creeks and the rivers.
Hunting often takes them away from their home in Tennessee, but this is their most adventurous journey to date.
I really didn't know anything about Kyrgyzstan, just that it was mountainous. I did know that.
Hey, let's have a little wait for the camera, guys.
Joining the father and son is Spook's Canadian hunting buddy, Clay Lancaster.
The biggest appeal with the hunting part is the adventure. I mean, a lot of people think it's all about just shooting something, but it's not about that. It's about getting away from cities, telephones, people, getting into the high mountains.
The three friends arrive in Kyrgyzstan and set off in minivans for their remote base camp. It's a whole 36 hours drive.
The journey out to the camp was the hardest part. It was a long and tough drive, it really was.
Come on, Clay, rise and shine.
I remember waking up and going, wow, is this ever cold? My feet were cold, my body was cold.
Hey. Oh. Yeah, we're trying to
Mountains everywhere you looked, and it was absolutely beautiful.
This is it.
I felt about as remote as a human could possibly feel. I mean, we didn't even hear or see an airplane. I mean, there was nothing. Those are the kind of things that were a lot different than what I was used to.
Say, if I promise to be quick, calling home already, then?
Clay has brought along a satellite phone and GPS in case of emergency.
Back in 1 minute.
But Denny wants to check in with his wife, Ruby.
Hello, Ruby?
I called her and told her if we didn't fire a shot that this trip was worth it, because it was probably one of the most beautiful scenes I'd ever seen.
Boy, it was worth the journey. Thank you. Hope you said your goodbyes, Denny. From now on, this is strictly an emergency phone.
Well, you're kidding, Clay. Every call to the wife is an emergency.
The hunters are on a tailor-made VIP tour, arranged in America. Based in a remote camp, 8 hours from the nearest town, they set off each day on horseback, accompanied by a team of local guides.
They were extremely friendly, extremely proud of their country, and they really wanted to teach you stuff.
They spent 2 whole weeks crossing miles and miles of frozen mountains in search of their prize.
They are a real challenge to hunt because there's times when you're in, snow waist deep.
Just days before their trip is over, the hunters get a sight of what they came for.
Seeing that ram, I felt like I was dreaming. I didn't even feel like it was real. It was something that I dreamed about for years and years.
We were real pleased with the hunt. We'd taken 2 real pretty Marco Polo sheep.
So that night we had a special dinner to celebrate.
It's the final night of the hunt, and the locals are determined to send the guys off with a bang.
I don't drink, so I was having a hard time. I told them no, 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 no. Well, they just wouldn't accept no for an answer. So when they counted to 3 and they all threw it back, I just took the glass and threw it by the side of my ear and poured it out behind me and slammed it back down and shook my head just like it about killed me,
Having bagged their trophy, the hunters are looking forward to heading home. Denny, Spook, and Clay leave base camp to travel on via the nearest town, over 300 miles away. But as they set off on the 8-hour journey, the weather begins to close in.
It had snowed a bunch. The road that we came in on, you couldn't actually even see it anymore because the wind got blown. It filled the road right in. I walked out away from the van, and I remember making a mark in the snow.
What'd you do that for?
I said, that's about as far as I think our Volkswagen van's gonna get.
I hope not.
I don't think we realized how deep and how bad it had got until we started.
Jeez, even I was being optimistic.
The snow is far too deep for the minivan, but the local guides now decide to carry on down the mountains to try and beat the oncoming blizzard.
And then that's when they said, oh, you have to get in this other truck. And I remember thinking, surprise, surprise. It was an old military type vehicle. It was wide open, the wind's blowing right up your tailpipe. It wasn't real comfortable in the back of there.
This was supposed to be, quote, VIP hunt, and that was part of what's supposed to make it so special. And we'd make a little joke about it, just having fun with it. It didn't feel like much of a VIP treatment.
The truck heads off from base camp, but almost immediately, the snow from the blizzard begins to engulf their aging vehicle.
But we didn't go a mile till we got stuck really bad.
We had to get out and shovel the whole thing out. And we kept shoveling and getting the truck out. And everybody get pushing and get the truck rocking, and away it would go.
I've been driving a truck since I was, just a kid, and I guess I made the comment that I thought I could drive the truck through the snow.
With Denny at the wheel, they struggle on through the snow.
And he did an awesome job. We actually made it further while he was driving than we did with anybody else.
But after a few hours, Denny tires and has to give up.
After he started back, he never let me drive anymore.
And as the day goes on, they keep hitting snowdrifts.
We reached a point where we couldn't really tell where the road was at.
Every time we come to some of the hills, we'd get stuck 3 or 4 times on the hills. You know, and eventually have to shovel the whole hill off, and then he could get a run, get to the top, and we'd go a little bit further.
It just snowed and snowed and snowed and snowed, and it got deeper.
By late afternoon, the hunters have come too far to turn back. And the weather is getting worse.
Well, it started to get completely white, where every rock was covered. I mean, it was just solid white. The snow was snowing, and nothing looked familiar. You're in this huge, vast valley. We're getting stuck worse and worse and more and more.
As the hours pass, the battle to make headway is taking its toll.
The snow got so deep, you'd shovel it out and you wouldn't go 10 yards.
We were just too exhausted to try to dig out anymore.
I kept thinking, you know, this is starting to get to be a bad situation. When you start getting your progress down from, you know, 200-300 yards at a time to 2-3 yards at a time, or 2-3 feet at a time, that's when you start to realize this is done. We're stuck, and where we're at right now is where we're going to stay.
The hunters are stranded in an icy wilderness, 10,000 feet above sea level in a raging snowstorm. Night is fast approaching, and the temperatures begin to plummet to minus 40 degrees.
How am I going to get out of here?
We decided just to stop and spend the night and wait and hopefully figure out a way to get out.
That's when you're beginning to get a little bit apprehensive about, you know, how am I going to get out of here?
The hunters know they have no option but to stay put in the middle of nowhere.
It's gonna be one hell of a night for sure.
It did get worse and became a real problem.
As night falls, the temperatures plummet. Exposure to this extreme of cold can kill human beings within minutes. With just their snowsuits and a thin canvas, they have to huddle up to keep as warm as they can.
I mean, it got down to, you know, somewhere around 30 to 40 below zero that night. The back of the truck was very crowded and it was very cold. It wasn't a fun, comfortable night by no means.
I was apprehensive, scared about the cold, being out of food. It was hard.
Maybe some sleeping bags down there.
Dad is very, you know, compassionate, always thinking of other people.
Somebody else.
And he was worried about were they going to be warm enough. We gave them whatever they needed, socks, boots, you know, jackets, whatever we had that we didn't have on our body ourselves, we let them use.
It's okay.
As night wears on, the locals sense just how dangerous the situation is.
They're getting a little worried. They live there all the time. They realize that people don't go out of their way to come save them, and there's no such thing as a search and rescue or anything like that.
Their behavior went from kind of being a jovial, you know, fun, laughing, joking, to now it was just a blank stare, desolate, concern, worry, disbelief.
The hunters make it through a bitterly cold night. But dawn brings no let-up in the weather. And as Clay emerges from the truck, he's in for a shock. Overnight, the truck has been engulfed by a whiteout. Clay can now no longer tell land from sky.
There was nothing to see anymore. It was just a solid snow landscape. You're in this huge, vast valley. Nobody really knows where they're at. That was a nerve-wracking feeling.
To make matters worse, the local guides begin to turn to the Westerners for suggestions of what to do next.
When you got them out of their normal routine, that they didn't have a clue what to do. And that was, I think, the part that got scary. And that's when we decided, look, they're not going to get us out. We're going to have to do something else.
Seems like more and more, they're starting to look to me what to do. I'm in a foreign country, and I really don't know what to do.
Clay knows that they're stuck and in big trouble. Using his satellite phone, he makes an emergency call to the man who they booked the hunting trip from.
He was in Russia at the time, in Moscow.
This is Clay Lancaster.
And he kept making light of the situation. No, it's not bad, it's not bad. And I kept saying to him, you don't realize where we're at and what's going on right now. Like, we are stuck.
Our truck is jammed in the snow. We can't take it out.
Pretty soon he was to the point of, hey, I gotta go for supper right now. I'm busy, I can't talk to you.
Hello?
And hung up the phone and turned his phone off.
Hello?
At that point there, it's a good thing I wasn't around him.
Can you believe this guy?
I said, that's it. I'm not relying on people here. I'm getting a hold of my brother back in Canada.
But the battery in Clay's satellite phone is already on reserve.
Listen.
It's just seconds away from dying out.
These are our coordinates. It's north 42.
It was a frustrating point. I was like, why did I let so much of that battery wear down? And it was the last battery that I had.
North.
Just as he's giving their exact location,
16. Hello?
the phone goes dead.
Hello? You think he heard you?
With no phone, the hunters are now completely isolated. All they can do is hunker down and try to keep warm.
Oh, thanks a lot.
We kind of got into survival mode, I guess.
Just thinking about Ruby.
Human instincts for survival do kick in when you get into a situation that you have to do something to survive.
The hunters and guides finish their last scraps of food. With nothing left to eat, they'll weaken and succumb to the cold more quickly. It's now been 24 hours since they left base camp, and they begin to doubt that they'll ever be rescued.
At this point, you're wondering, are they going to come after us, you know?
You okay, Danny?
Just thinking about Ruby. She's expecting me back tomorrow.
It was definitely a concern of mine that if somebody does get to us, are they going to get to us on time?
You're thinking about your kids, thinking about your family, your wife. I don't know, it's hard to stay motivated. I mean, you feel helpless.
As the second night falls, the temperatures plummet again. And so does the mood in the truck.
Having to be out there another night when it's 30 or 40 below and realizing that nobody's gonna be there. It's just, I don't know, it's an indescribable feeling.
But despite everything, Clay is determined not to give up.
I kind of set my mind that this is not where I'm gonna die at. I'm not ready for that right now.
He wants to walk away from the truck towards their base camp, where he can recharge his phone and call for help.
I talked to them guys and said, if nobody comes the following day, then I'm going to try and walk out of here. One way or the other, I'm not going to stay here and just wait.
But leaving the vehicle breaks a golden rule of survival.
You can't help but be just a little bit afraid of how hard that might be. What all the consequences might be if you started the wrong direction. There was basically no way to know exactly which way to go.
The attitude from everybody else was like, we'll never make it. We need to stay with the vehicle. That's our best chance. The longer you stay with that vehicle, that's probably what your best odds are.
It's an agonizing dilemma. Clay may never make it alive to the base camp, but staying put and doing nothing may also threaten the lives of the whole hunting party.
If you look at it from the other side, that if nobody comes, that's probably far more dangerous. And how many days do you go without food before your strength's not going to be there to be able to do something like that? At what point should I go? At what point should you decide, hey, let's try and get out of here?
Dawn on the third day brings a life-changing decision for Clay Lancaster. Stay and hope rescue will come, or risk hiking out to find help.
I thought to myself, okay, I'll give it to the end of today, and if nothing's happened by the end of today, then I'm walking. I definitely set it up in my mind that I was going to go.
As the weather clears, Clay's decision to stay proves to be the right one.
Listen.
Now it's like, there they are.
It's a helicopter, I know it is. Come on!
You know, it was a great feeling to see that helicopter come in.
Clay's phone call of the previous day has got through.
These are our coordinates.
You know, everybody was excited. It was a thrilling moment, feeling of relief.
After 36 hours out in the cold, the party has finally been rescued.
It went from just miserable, cold and hungry, and all of a sudden, boom, all of it's gone.
I remember looking at Spook and giving him a high five and going, it's about time.
They've only eaten scraps of food in the last 2 days, and they're ravenously hungry.
The food tasted really good. And of course, they had their vodka. They always have vodka, you know. That's like water to them.
But no sooner has the helicopter landed than the hunters are astonished to see another unexpected sight heading towards them in the distance.
And then all of a sudden, here comes 3 snowmobiles.
We didn't have a clue who they were, where they were coming from.
It was like something you would see in a movie and you'd say, oh, that wouldn't really happen. These guys pull up, and the guys were from America. They spoke English.
We were kind of really shocked to see English-speaking U.S. Border Patrol guys on snow machines where we were at.
The Americans are on a training mission to help the Kyrgyzstan army, and they've been diverted to rescue the men.
And they said, we're here to get you guys out. And said, we'll do whatever you want to do, any way you want to do it.
Clay, Denny, and Spook now have a crucial decision to make. Do they ride out overland with American military? Or take the much faster route? On board the local Kyrgyzstani helicopter,
What do you think? About a half hour ago, and we got some currents in bad shape.
We were kind of anxious to get home.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The three of us agreed, no, we'd stay on this helicopter and fly directly back to Bishkek, because that's where it was going to. So it'd save us at least a day.
decision made. The guides load up the chopper. But Spook notices it's carrying an enormous load.
As I get on the helicopter, and I just had a brief thought of, that's kind of weird, all our gear is just piled up in the middle of the floor in the helicopter. It's not strapped down, it's just kind of stacked up.
As it struggles to take off, he begins to doubt they've made the right decision.
And I look back at Clay and I said, "Do you think we're overloaded?" But I mean, the crew seemed to be okay with it, so we just kind of let it roll off our shoulders and went with it.
The pilot gets airborne, and finally the ordeal is over. The three friends are on their way home.
I thought, great, we're finally going home. Finally, we're heading out of here.
Of the Kyrgyz people that were with us on the hunt, they was talking about, pointing and all this stuff and laughing. They'd never been on a helicopter before, so they were laughing about getting a ride.
I remember looking out the window, just, being one of those surreal moments where it almost didn't seem like what had happened had happened.
But as the helicopter makes its way over the mountains, it becomes clear something is wrong.
I could feel the helicopter sort of tip ahead a little bit. I thought, well, maybe it's out of balance or something.
Move back.
Each move back one seat.
Get back. Move back.
I remember looking back out of the window and still seemed like we were high up. And that's the last thing I remember.
The helicopter suddenly spins out of control and plummets to the ground.
I didn't even have time to put my hands up, and then my face flew right into the top of the roof of the helicopter.
It's just a horrifying moment. The fuel tank was on top of me.
I remember all of a sudden going, that looks kind of close. And then boom, we hit. We went sideways and we flipped 8-9 times.
People were screaming and hollering and stuff was flying in every direction.
These drums came past me and hit me a couple of times. Then all of a sudden we came to a sliding sort of stop.
First thing I thought of was, you don't live through these kind of things.
The helicopter is ripped open on impact. In the front, Clay is injured, his left eye badly bloodied. The first thing he hears are Denny's cries.
Denny started hollering from the back.
Where is he? Can you see him? Spook! Answer me, son. Answer me, son. Spook!
He didn't answer me.
Denny has no idea if his son has survived the crash.
That was one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life. And I don't know whether it was 1 minute or 5 minutes or whatever it was. It seemed like an eternity.
As I turned to my right, I seen Spook laying down beside me. I said, it's okay, he's right here, he's right here. I said, I got him.
Spook!
Spook is alive but badly injured. He's been crushed on impact and has broken 6 ribs.
Easy, son.
I had blood coming out of my mouth. I could actually feel 1 or 2 of my ribs moving when I would breathe. Felt like knives sticking in me. I've never been in that much pain in that many different places.
Danny and Clay pull him out of the wreckage.
It was like something that would happen to you in a dream. And all of a sudden, you just go deaf. It just goes quiet.
And it's only now Clay realizes that he too is badly injured.
And I realized at that point there that I couldn't see anything out of my one eye.
That eye.
It was bloody and looked like his eyeball was just torn out almost. You know, I thought it was gone.
And I looked at Denny and I said,
How bad is it? It's bad.
Clay has lost the sight in one eye. But despite his injury, he and Denny head back into the wreckage to help the others still trapped inside.
There was some people's faces were just torn. It was really, really bad. People were hurt bad. One of the ladies was under the helicopter, and her husband was trying to pull her out. And there was no doubt in my mind that that lady was dead. I don't remember how much time had passed, but he put her in his arms, carried her out, and he'd got her way away from the helicopter, and she was actually alive. I couldn't believe it.
Amidst the carnage, Clay makes a shocking discovery.
so I started trying to count. And then I looked at one of the guides and I had asked where this young fellow was that had been looking after the horses, and nobody could see him anywhere.
Just feet from the wreckage, half buried in the snow, is the body of the young guide.
That was it, he was gone. It was a really weird feeling for me because 15 seconds before that, he'd moved into my seat.
Everybody, move back!
I've thought about it many times since then. I've looked back on it, wondering and thinking what would have happened if I hadn't moved.
The guide and the pilot have been killed in the crash. But the survivors are now in an even more desperate situation than before the rescue. They're severely injured, need urgent medical attention, and are out in the wilderness with no protection from the freezing cold.
One of the ladies that was one of the cooks had really bad internal injuries plus a broken pelvic bone. There was another fellow that was unconscious. He was breathing, he had a pulse and everything, but didn't seem to respond to anything at all.
It was a sad feeling, and knowing that people were hurting like they were, and it didn't seem to be anything that you could do.
They're totally stranded, and with no life left in the satellite phone, they have no communication with the outside world.
And we knew that we had already run the battery down to dead.
But Clay knows he can't give up. He has to do something. It's their only chance.
I knew the battery was dead, but I was wearing wool pants. So I grabbed the battery and I just started rubbing it on my leg, trying to create some friction on it.
Clay is hoping that the warmth from the friction will produce enough heat to recharge the battery.
And I rubbed it, hour and a half kind of thing, and just kept rubbing it. And then I put it back on my phone, turned it on, and I pushed send.
It produces the slimmest of lifelines.
Hello?
It went through to my brother,
Hey, it's me again.
and I said, helicopter crashed. And and I got half the GPS coordinates of where we're at to him.
Bro,
And then the phone went dead.
you still there? Bro! Bro!
Did my brother catch it all? Did he write it down? I don't know.
With no idea if the coordinates got through, they now face their third night out in the wilderness. And Clay realizes Denny is in extreme pain.
You okay, Danny?
My pain seemed to get worse as the nights went on.
Okay,
I had him lift up his shirt and could see a lot of bruising.
it's my ribs.
The adrenaline has been masking the pain until now.
I could tell his ribs were broken, and I was worried that, something was going to happen to him, whether it was puncturing a lung or maybe he'd already done something. Maybe he had some bleeding inside too.
I say you've broken a couple of ribs there, Danny.
Yeah, well, maybe, but you don't look too good yourself.
The temperature plummets, and exposed on the mountainside, they have no protection against the minus 40-degree cold.
Several of the other people had gone and built a fire. And there wasn't really that much stuff to burn other than just stuff that was on the helicopter,
The local guides turn to alcohol to keep warm and blot out their fear.
They opened up a bottle of vodka, drank the entire thing, grabbed another one, chugged about half that. They really had the attitude, well, we're definitely not going to make it now. Nobody's going to come get us. I think people really believed they weren't going to make it through the night.
Drinking alcohol may numb their senses, but it also dilates their blood vessels, causing their bodies to lose heat even faster.
And there was a lot of people, their attitude was, this is it, we're done, and they just started drinking the vodka.
As night wears on, the fire begins to burn out. In a panic, the local guides look for anything to keep it alive.
I see people start burning their clothes, throwing jackets in there and shoes and stuff.
It was like crazy. They just couldn't cope with it. They didn't try to preserve anything for any later moments.
I thought this is going to get really bad in a quick hurry.
Clay decides he must act, or risk everyone dying on the mountainside.
I'm not really good at sitting there and not doing anything. I don't really wait for anybody else to tell me what to do. I just go do it.
But Clay himself is carrying an awful injury.
I took a bunch of snow, cleaned off my eye the best that I could, and actually took some duct tape that I had there and just duct taped it up.
He now realizes he has no option. Half blind, he knows he must leave the wreckage and seek help.
This isn't good, if I don't walk out of here, there's definitely going to be some other people that are going to be gone. You sit and wait when it could be 2 or 3 days before somebody comes along. I wasn't willing to take that risk.
I think this is where we are.
Spook and Denny are too injured to go with Clay.
You'd never make it.
The one husband, he was extremely concerned about his wife.
Take one of these guys with me.
There's a real strong bond that as soon as I got to camp, I could see between the two of them. So I thought at that point, if we wait 2 or 3 days here, she's definitely not going to be here. And that's when I said to him, I go, tomorrow morning, you and I are going to have to walk out of here. And he really didn't want to lose her. He was broke down pretty hard. So that's when we made up our mind the next morning that we were taking off.
Heading out into the snowbound wilderness will put Clay's life at risk, and there's little chance he'll find help. But staying put could mean everyone perishing in the cold.
There was a bunch of people saying, you know, don't go, don't go, don't go. I wasn't really into discussing it with anybody anymore. I went through the options in my mind, and I thought, if I don't go, then there really is going to be quite a few more people that are not going to make it.
Clay makes up his mind to head out in search of rescue. The husband of the seriously injured Kirk woman volunteers to go with him.
He took my gun, some shells, and, you know, they struck out. I was kind of nervous for him because that snow, you know, I mean, it was 2.5, 3 foot deep, and it's tough walking in that kind of conditions. Really tough.
They head due north, hoping to find a local road and the remote chance of civilization.
This is going to be a long, tiring day, and I'm not real optimistic about where I'm going to.
But just when they think their plight can get no worse, they're hit by an almighty blizzard.
It started snowing again like crazy. It was a complete whiteout blizzard. And when you're in a complete whiteout like that, in that kind of a landscape, the snow as deep as it is, you actually get to a point where you can't see anything. You can't make out any other color than literally to hold your hand in front of your face. I would walk, then I would stop and I'd reach in my pocket. I would take the compass out, and I would find I was going in a completely opposite direction than I thought. I thought I was walking in a perfectly straight line.
With only one eye, the blizzard causes Clay debilitating snow blindness.
You know, there's a lot of strain on my eye, and just not having any depth perception where you can't see rocks or trees or grass or anything. Everything you look at is white. You don't know if you're going uphill, if you're going downhill. You just step, 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 step. I concentrated on my family and thinking about them, and just kept walking.
Back at the wreckage, Denny and Spook can only wait and hope Clay will make it through.
Seeing death around you, seeing people other people who you think may die within the next few hours, and being faced with the possibility that you may be one of those people. I had thoughts about, you know, missing out on my kids growing up, and, you know, all the things that you get to experience and enjoy as a father. Fishing trips, hunting trips, ball games, plays, you know, just watching them grow up. I love my wife dearly, and the thoughts of, you know, not getting to see her again, you know, race through your mind. It was the worst feeling, the worst moments that I've ever experienced.
Clay and the guide have been battling through the snow for 10 hours.
My legs didn't have the energy. Every time I'd step, I was like, take a deep breath, and it's just like picking up a chunk of lead.
They're completely exhausted.
was getting closer to dark, and I hit the top of the hill.
Then, out of nowhere, he sees the sign of life he's been hoping for.
I looked in front of me and I could see a military outpost, and I could hear snow machines.
It's a chance of rescue. But the riders of the snowmobiles can't see Clay and the guide. He has to find a way to get their attention.
It didn't seem like it got anybody's attention.
But Clay notices that one of the riders has stopped.
He went to the back part of his machine, and I fired a shot back behind him. And I watched with my binoculars, and his head popped up. I fired a second shot. And they all kind of turned and looked back towards him. And I could see they seen me, and they all jumped on their machine and come roaring to where I was at.
Incredibly, the snowmobiles are the same ones from the US military that Clay, Denny, and Spook turned down a lift with just 36 hours earlier.
Seeing English-speaking guys on snow machines at that point, I was pretty happy to see them.
After 3 days out in the mountains, their ordeal is finally over.
Hearing that snowmobile get closer and closer and seeing him pull up, it was a sweet feeling.
Oh, it was just a great feeling. That was one of the greatest feelings I've ever had.
The hunters are flown to Hong Kong, where they receive medical treatment. Clay's eye is treated, and his sight is saved.
Do I still hunt like I did before? Yes. Probably with more respect for nature still, and with a big smile on my face that I'm still here to do it.
I had a great love for life before the crash, and I have that same love for life afterwards.
I'm a very blessed man. Not only to get out of a helicopter crash, but to have great people to come home to.